Good morning to everyone and welcome to the Mathematical Literacy Grade 12 webinar. We will begin shortly. I would just like to allow a few more minutes for all the attendees to register and to log into today's webinar. So please be patient, wait a few more minutes with me and we will begin shortly. Okay, I think we're going to get started as it looks like most attendees have joined us. Okay, so my name is Kimberly Britt. I'm the Educational Specialist for Mathematical Literacy. Now, before we begin this webinar, let's just cover some of the basics. If you are struggling to hear me, make sure your audio is on and your speaker volume is turned up. You will automatically be muted when joining the session. Should you have any questions, you can ask your question in the question box below or on the right of your screen, or you can simply raise your hand. To raise your hand, click the icon on your dashboard below or on your right. Download this presentation and additional resources in the handout box below or on your right. You will also find all this information in the question box below or on your right. Remember to send us your questions. Attendees are encouraged to ask questions and leave comments. However, irrelevant or inappropriate comments will result in an attendee being dismissed from the session. If we did not get to your question, please send an email to academics@impact.co.za. Questions in the question box will be answered and made available afterwards. If you did not receive the questions and answers, please send an email to info@impact.co.za. Visit the Impact YouTube channel for recordings of this session. At this point, I would just like to take opportunity to mention other few key points and answer some of your questions that I see some of the attendees regularly ask. First of all your questions in the question box will be answered via email. So please check your email this afternoon and tomorrow, because I will be giving feedback or attending to your questions during this afternoon and tomorrow. So as soon as this session is finished and you come across any other content related questions, you are more than welcome to send me an email at academics@impact.co.za so that I can assist you in the matter. If you have any other general inquiries regarding June examination, impact registration, assessments, and so forth, please send an email to info@impact.co.za. We are aware that sometimes the connection isn't that great, so if at any point you do not hear what I'm saying or my slide is frozen, please note that this session will be made available on YouTube. So if you feel that you might have missed anything that was explained during today's discussion, you can go and have a look on the YouTube channel to review those the sections that you might have missed. Then last point, all the previous week's notes as well as the previous webinars slides, they are all made available on Guided Learning. You can go download it there. Alternatively, you can just give me in the question box, you can just give me your email address along with the notes that you wish to receive, and I will send you the documents. Then lastly, I would also just like to welcome Serena Jordan. She is the organizer for this morning's webinar. She is at the back, so you are not able to hear or see her, but she's there just making sure everything runs smoothly for this session. Now, we have already covered Term 2 topics a few times. You will find that these topics are mentioned in all the notes and in all the webinars. So just a quick overview, we have already dealt with finances for the past 3 weeks. So according to my knowledge, you should be working towards the end of the finance topic in your study guide. Today we will be looking at measurement, which include distance, length, mass, volume, temperature, perimeter, area, and volume. Today we are only going to be focusing on perimeter, area, and volume. There are notes, the grade 10 and grade 11 learners have done distance, length, mass, volume, and temperature this week in their discussion. So if you wish to have those notes just as some revision from the work that you have already done for the past 2 years, you are welcome to just send me an email. I can send you the notes from the other grades so that you can just do that revision before you continue with this year's work. So for today's purpose, we are only looking at perimeter, area, and volume. Now, before we continue, I would just like to backtrack a little bit. When we talk about measuring, there are two main measuring systems that is used across the world. They are referred to as the metric system and the imperial system. Now, the metric system is a decimal-based system of measuring, referred to as the International System of Units, or the abbreviation SI. Now, the purpose or the reason for it being called the International System of Units is because this is the measuring system that is used most commonly around the world. You will see that the most countries across the entire world use the metric system. Now, when we talk about the metric system, it means that we measure using meters, kilogram, liters, degrees Celsius, and that is just to touch base. So there are many more other measurement units that falls under metric system. The next is imperial system. So imperial system includes measuring using yards, gallons, pints, Fahrenheit, feet, and so forth. There are plenty of other measuring units, but that is just to give you an idea. Now, this is just for extra information for those of you that might find this interesting. Now, you will find that the imperial system is only used in USA, Burma, and Liberia. So these areas indicated here in gray on the world map is where the imperial system is being used. So this is not for learning purposes. You do not need to know this. It will never be asked of you. This is just some extra information so that whenever we talk about the imperial and the metric system, you do have slight bit of an idea of where these systems are being used. You will also find that the metric system, which is your SI unit, is used in all the countries indicated here in white on the world map. So you can see why it is called the International System of Units, as it is being used a lot, far and wide all across the globe. Now, since we are doing perimeter, volume, and area, we are just going to do some quick revision on measuring length and distance, as this is the type of measurement used when working with area, perimeter, and volume. First of all, when we talk about length, it is the measurement of a short to medium length object. In short measurements. So we talk about length when we talk about the length of a person, the length of your hair, the length of your arm, the length of a table. So it's all short to medium lengths that are measured. When we refer to distance, it is the physical length between two places or objects. Now, we refer to distance when we talk about long measurements. So we never talk about the length between two cities. We talk about the distance between two cities. So although length and distance are technically speaking the same thing, when we refer to length and distance, we refer to different types of lengths or distances, if that makes sense. Now, before we continue, quickly have a look at the following three conversions. These three are extremely important for you to know. So 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters, 1 meter equals 100 centimeters, 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters. Now, it is important for you to know these three conversions, and I would lie if I say that I'm slightly worried if you still don't know these three conversions off by heart, because they are not given to you in an exam or test. So whenever you have to deal with measuring of length and distance, they require you to have this pre-knowledge. Therefore, I encourage you to study and learn these three conversions if you don't already know it. Now, going on with today's topic of discussion, looking at perimeter, area, and volume. Now, first of all, we get two dimensions of shapes. The first is a two-dimensional shape, which is a shape with a flat surface or face, as indicated in the first image here. This shape only has two dimensions, which is length and height. Then we have a three-dimensional shape, which is a shape that has three dimensions, which is length, height, and width. Therefore, a three-dimensional shape also has volume. Now, when we talk about perimeter, perimeter refers to the distance or the length around the outer edges of a shape or boundary. So if we look at the two-dimensional shape over here, the perimeter will be all four sides, the length of all four sides added together. So the boundary or the perimeter of this shape. If we talk about the area, it is the size of the plane of the shape. So that would be the size of everything on the inside of this square. When we talk about volume, it is the capacity of the inside of a three-dimensional shape. So over here, a two-dimensional shape does not have volume because it does not have the ability to hold anything inside of it, where a three-dimensional shape does have the ability to hold something inside of it. Therefore, it has volume, and it is the space inside this three-dimensional shape. When we talk about surface area, we refer to the sum of the areas of all the planes that make out the surface of a shape. Now, simply put, two-dimensional shapes put together form a three-dimensional shape. You will see that this cube is actually put together out of 6 squares. Therefore, if we go and look at the surface area, we will then have to calculate the area of 6 squares and put together. If we add those 6 values together, it is going to give us the surface area. So that is just some revision. Hopefully you guys already knew all of this information, as you have been doing it for a few years now already. Now we are quickly going to just do an overview, once again, revision on the formulas that you are going to be working with and that you are required to be familiar with as well. So the two-dimensional shapes is a rectangle, triangle, and circle. For these three shapes, you are only going to be working with a perimeter and an area formula, as two-dimensional shapes, once again, do not have volume. Now, for a rectangle, the perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. That means length plus width plus length plus width. Simple enough. To determine what the area on the inside is, we will say the length times the width. So it's quite simple. When we look at the triangles formulas, the perimeter will simply be the addition or the sum of the 3 sides. When we look at the area, it's going to be half of the base. So the base is from the one point to the other, half of the base multiplied by the height. Looking at the circle, now, a circle doesn't have a perimeter. We talk about it as the circumference. So the circumference of the circle is 2 pi, the radius. Remember, the radius is half of the length. So you will see that the diameter talks about the length from the one outer edge of the circle to the other outer edge, where the radius is half of the diameter. It's from the center of the circle to the outer edge. The area is calculated by pi r squared. Now looking at the three formulas for our three-dimensional shapes is it's a triangular prism, a cylinder, and a rectangular prism. Once again, there are many more shapes. This is just ones that you are going to be working with most often. If you are going to be given another type of shape in a test or in an exam, they will give you the formulas. So don't worry too much about that. Whenever you work with a different shape as given on my screen currently, they will provide you with those formulas. So let's quick have an overview. Rectangular prism has a volume, therefore length times width times height. Length, width, and height. A cylinder has a volume formula of pi r squared times the height. Remember, r being the radius, height being the side length. Then a triangular prism, the formula for the volume is 1/3 of the base. So 1/3, once again, base is exactly the same as your two-dimensional triangle, multiplied by the height of your triangular prism. So it's quite straightforward. Now, extremely important at this stage, guys. Most of the time, this will be given in an exam or in a test. So the majority of the time, they will provide you with these formulas, with simple formulas. For example, the perimeter of a rectangle or the area of a rectangle. They are most unlikely to provide you with the basic simple formulas, but determining the volume of a cylinder or triangular prism, they will give you those formulas. You simply need to know how to use them correctly. Now, today's webinar is going to be on 3 examples. Now, the purpose of these examples you will understand shortly, so just bear with me. You will see that this example comes from a Sakai Prelim Examination 2018, paper 1. Now, most of you are going to think, oh, but this is quite easy. It's simple. I can do that. Now, there's a method behind my madness. So once again, just stick with me. Question reads, the plan below shows the outlines of the floor plan of a house that is being built. The one side of the house has a semicircle shape with a diameter of 3 meters. Then we look at the shape. Then question 2.1.1 reads, calculate the total floor area of the house that needs to be tiled. The following formula may be used. Okay, so extremely important that you notice that they do give you formulas over here, as I told you with the previous slide. Now, before we continue, if we look at our shape, we have a semicircle over here, and then over here we have 2 rectangles. Okay, so it's important that first of all we create shapes that we can actually work with, that we are familiar with, and therefore we are going to have 1, 2, 3 shapes. Okay, 3 familiar shapes for which we have formulas for which with which we can work. Now, once again, they give you formulas, pay close attention to that, and then also pay extremely close attention to the mark allocation. Can you see that this question, which first sight looks extremely simple and easy, it is work that you've most likely already done in grade 11. It counts 12 marks. It's a lot of mark, guys, and if you show and provide the incorrect calculations, you will unnecessarily throw away marks. So the purpose of us doing this question today is so that I can teach you how to answer these questions correctly so that you don't lose marks for no reason. First of all, you will see that we have all the lengths of the sides except for this shape 2. So first of all, we are going to determine the lengths of these sides. Now, 14, which is this side here at the bottom, 14 minus 8 gives you this outstanding length, which is 6 meters. The next one is this side over here. Now, first of all, you can just assume that it is 3 meters, but remember, pictures are not drawn on scale, so if you cannot prove it mathematically, then it's best to just stay away from assuming things. So first of all, we're going to say 6 minus 3. That is going to give you the length of this section over here. So it gives you an answer of 3 meters. But now pay close attention. If the total of this side is 6 meters and you calculated this as 3 meters, then it must mean that this side over here is also 3 meters. Okay. There, we've calculated that. Now moving on to our second set of calculations. We now have to determine the area of all three of our shapes. So shape 1 is length times width, which is 8 times 6 meters. Now 8 times 6 gives you a floor area of 48 square meters. Moving on to shape number 2. We did now calculate this as 6 meters and 3 meters. So 6 times 3 gives you an area of 18 square meters. Now here comes in the little bit more complicated part of our calculations, working with a semicircle of area. Look here, area of a circle equals to pi times the radius squared. Now, we are going to use that formula as provided to us, but this is the formula for an entire circle. So you need to realize that you only wish to determine the area of a semicircle, of half a circle. Therefore, the formula is going to be divided by 2, divided in half. Your next part will be to substitute in the values that you have, which is the value of pi, which is 3,14, multiplied by 1,5. This 1,5 is your radius. Remember, radius is half of your diameter, so 3 divided in half or divided by 2 gives you an answer of 1,5. And this entire calculation, once again, divided by 2 because we only wish to determine half the area of a circle. So you type all of that into your calculator. It will give you an answer of 3,53 square meters. Your last step will be to actually answer the question. The question asks, calculate the total floor area. So the total floor area is determined by adding all the areas together, which is 48 plus 18 plus 3,53. I see I just missed the decimal there, but that is fine. So you add those values together, gives you a final answer of 69,53 square meters. Now, you will see that I added an additional note here talking about the rounding off correctly. So extremely important. Even if all your calculations are done correctly, you will not get a mark if you are rounded, or if your answer is rounded off incorrectly. So even if you were to get a mark for your answer and a mark for the unit, you will not get any of those 2 marks if your value is rounded off incorrectly. So something to pay attention to. Let's quickly look at the mark allocation. So first of all, you would have gotten a mark for determining the length of this side. You would have gotten another mark for determining the length of this unknown side. You would have gotten a mark over here for showing calculations regarding area 1, and then another mark for the final floor area of shape 1. Then another mark when we're looking at shape 2, a mark for the calculations, and another mark for your final answer. For your semicircle, you would have gotten 2 marks. 2 marks for substituting in the correct value, as well as using 1,5 as your radius and not 3. So 2 marks for substitution, and then a final mark for your answer. Okay, lastly, you would have gotten a mark if you indicated that you add all the areas together. So for simply adding, you would have gotten a mark. Then for your final answer, you would get an answer for the calculation of the area values as well as the correct unit indicated. So guys, that is 12 easy, simple marks. And especially if you are struggling in finance areas, or you are struggling with probability, or with data handling, or with any other topic, this is a topic where you can actually get marks quite easily by just showing clear and chronological following steps. Let's look at our following example. Sakai Prelim Examination 2019, Paper 2, that is where this example comes from, is the figure, or the above figure is a 3D model of an ice cream cone. It is the combination of half a sphere and the bottom part of a cone. A roadside cafe needs this model to advertise its soft serve ice cream. Use the formulas below to answer the questions to follow. So once again, pay attention that they give you these formulas. Don't simply start right away answering the questions and then you simply misread or miss that crucial part of information. 2.1. Demonstrates that the height of the cone is 88 centimeters. Now, very important. Can you see here they give you the diameter of the half sphere? Okay, now the diameter is 110 centimeters, which means that the radius is half of 110. So 110 centimeters divided by 2 gives you a radius of 55 centimeters. Now, the reason for us first having to calculate what the radius is the radius is also going to indicate to us from the center all the way to the top what the height of this half sphere is. Therefore, if we take the total height, 143 centimeters, from that we subtract the 55 centimeters, which is our radius, it gives us an answer of 88 centimeters, and therefore we have just proven our question statement. The height of the cone is 88 centimeters. Now we're moving on to our next question. You will see the question statement remains the same. So it's only question 2.2 that is now different. Use these dimensions to determine the surface area of the ice cream cone. Give your answer in square centimeters, rounded off to 2 decimal places. And once again, pay attention. The marks shows 8 mark allocations for this question. Another thing that I would like to just fix your attention to is that they give you the value of pi. Whenever they give you this value, this is the value you use. You are not allowed to make use of the pi symbol on your calculator in a situation where pi is given, because pi on your calculator includes plenty and many decimals, where this one is already shortened. So it is important to just be aware of that. And then once again, 8 marks for this question. So first of all, we are going to start with the surface area of our half sphere. Now over here, surface area of a whole sphere equals to 4 pi r squared. Now, extremely important, this is the formula for a whole sphere. We only wish to determine the surface area of half a sphere. Therefore, we are going to divide our formula in half, giving you a formula of 2 pi r squared. Now, secondly, you are going to substitute in the information that you have been provided with, which is the value of pi. Once again, it's given here. And then your radius of 55, the one that we've previously calculated in the previous question, and 55 squared. Type all of that into your calculator, gives you a final answer of 19,009,1 squared centimeters. Right, now we are going to calculate the surface area of the cone. Now, what I would like you to just note at this stage is, look at the surface area of a whole cone. The formula given here is different to the formula that we are actually going to be using. Now, the reason for that is, if you take into consideration, a cone is normally closed at the top. So you will see the circle indicated here. Normally there's a type of a lid almost that closes that open end. But for the purpose of this 3D model, that lid is going to be open. So we will not need to determine the surface area of this, as it is not part of the surface area of the shape. It's only the outside of the shape that we need to calculate the surface area for. And this section over here, this lid is not part of the surface area. Therefore, the surface area is a circle, and the formula for the surface or for the area of a circle is pi r squared, and therefore we are going to leave that out of our formula and simply use pi r times height. That is then the formula for our surface area for the cone. Next, we will substitute in the values that we have. It is the value of pi as given in our question statement. Then 55, which is the radius. Remember the radius of our half sphere here at the top, we calculated as 55. And then the height, which we also stated in the first question as 88 centimeters. Now you type all of that into your calculator and it should give you an answer of 15,207,28 square centimeters. Now, your last step, almost the easiest step of this entire question, is to simply add the surface areas together. So you're going to add the surface area of your half sphere to the surface area of the cone as indicated here, and that is going to give you a final answer of 34,260,38 square centimeters. So once again, as I told you, the purpose of these questions or examples is to show you what you are getting marks for. Now, quickly have a look here. As you are not going to use the formula given, you have to derive from that formula by dividing it in half. Therefore, you will actually get a mark for giving me the correct formula that you are planning on using. You will get a mark for substituting in the correct values, and you will get a mark for your final answer. Once again, with the cone, this is not the same formula as given here. You had to derive this formula from the given formula. Therefore, you will actually receive a mark for this formula. Once again, receive a mark for the substitution of values and a final mark for your answer. And then your last 2 marks will go toward adding the 2 values together and then for your final answer. So can you see how easily giving insufficient steps and insufficient calculation can quickly allow you to lose marks? Therefore, show what your formulas are, regardless if it is given or not. Always show me what formula you are using. Show me how you are substituting in your values. It is extremely important for taking into consideration the marks. Okay, the next example that I want to be discussing is an example that is going to be about Pythagoras. So if we read the question, it says the angle formed at Satara Camp is 90 degrees. So over here, Satara Camp, 90 degrees, right-angled triangle. The distance between Olifants Camp and Satara Camp, which is over here, is 45 kilometers, and the distance between Orpen Camp and Olifants Camp is 60 kilometers. Now determine the area as illustrated in the image below. So they would like you to determine the area of this triangle. Now, as it is a right-angled triangle, you are allowed to make use of Pythagoras. Now we are going to use the hypotenuse. Now the formula is always your hypotenuse squared equals to the one side squared, which is BC squared, added to the other side AC squared. Now, first of all, we substitute in the information that we have received. Now, we already have the hypotenuse side, which is 60 kilometers. We have the length of BC, which is 45 kilometers. The only unknown side we have is AC over here, as indicated in our formula or in our equation. Now, first of all, we square those 2 values to give us 3,600 and 2,025. Now, the whole purpose of this equation is to get AC by itself on the one side of the equation so that we can determine the length of this side. So the next step will be to get rid of this 2,025 in order for AC to be alone on this side of the equation. Now, as this side 2025 is being added to AC, so the opposite action will be to subtract this value from 3,000 and 3,600. Now, if you put that into your calculator, you get an answer of 1,575. Now, we are not done yet. Can you see that AC is squared? There's a 2 over here. So this is not, in fact, the length of this side. The next step will be is to get the square root of 1,575, and that will then cancel out the square on this side of your equation. Now, if you type that into your calculator, it gives you a length of 39,69 kilometers. So I hope all of you understand me up until this point. Now, the reason why it was necessary for us to first calculate the length of AC, because this is the base of our triangle, and we need the base in order to determine the area. Therefore, we are going to say area equals half base times height. You substitute in the values that you have been provided with. So the height is 45 and the base is 39,69 as we have calculated it here. You type that into your calculator and you get an answer of 893,03 square kilometers. So it's as simple as that. Now, once again, let's have a look at how marks were allocated. First of all, if you substituted your values into your Pythagoras formula correctly, you get a mark. If you calculated them correctly, you get another mark. If you get the final answer here, you get another mark. For putting this under a square root, you get another mark. And then for getting a final answer for the length of AC, your final mark. Then over here, you are awarded another mark for the formula because the formula was not given in your question statement. So if you knew this beforehand, you are awarded a mark. You are awarded another mark for substituting in the correct information and then again for getting your final answer. So there again, one question, 8 marks. So you can see that one question can count anything between, say, 6 to 12, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but it is still a lot of marks awarded for one question. And the places where you lose marks is not due to lack of knowledge and not understanding the question. It is due to the lack of enough calculations. Can you see so many marks awarded for calculations? So please be aware of that. Now, as I said, formula not given, therefore you are awarded a mark. Now, the last part that I would like to discuss in today's session, this was not included. It is not part of perimeter, area, and volume, but it is also part of term 2 measurement, and it is an interesting topic. So I thought let's just include it in today's discussion for those who are still a little bit uncertain. So we are going to be looking at BMI, body mass index, which is measuring a person's body weight based on the person's height and weight. Now, BMI's measuring unit is kilogram per square meter, and BMI calculations involve dividing the mass with the height squared. So over here is your formula, and extremely important, this formula is given to you in a test and in an exam. So you do not need to know this beforehand. All you need to know is how to use it correctly. Then going further down to the next note, body mass index charts, which we will discuss on the next slide, and then used to determine the weight status of children using the following table. So if you were given the mass and the height of a learner and you were able to determine what the BMI is, you can use this weight status table to then determine what the weight status is of the learner. So for example, if this child had a BMI of 13, you would go and look in the table at the bottom. 13 will be less than 18,5, and therefore the weight status of this learner will be underweight. Now, once again, important, this table is given to you, so please do not go and study it as it is provided in a test and exam. Now, going a little bit further, this is a BMI graph or chart, and I would just like to discuss one scenario with you so that you know how to correctly interpret the information from this chart. First of all, our scenario reads, a girl aged 10 with a BMI of 20, we have to now look what her body mass index for age percentiles is according to the information given. So our first step will be to identify her age on the horizontal axis, which is 10. Next, we will identify her BMI on the vertical axis, which is 20. And then you extend these values and you see where the lines intersect, where they cross. So now you can see that these lines meet, and it almost looks like it's exactly on this line indicating the 85th percentile. Now what this means is that 85% of the girls aged 10 has a BMI as the same BMI as this girl. The 15% that now lies above is 15% of the girls aged 10 has a higher BMI. So I hope that this helped you a little bit in interpreting a body mass index for percentiles. In terms of percentiles, it is extremely easy if known how to do correctly. Now, I would just like to go through 2 examples quickly before we end off for today's session. Now, this example was taken from a June examination 2018, paper 1. The nurse at the clinic offers advice to teenage girls about various health issues. The following information is provided. And as I said, you will be given this table, and you will be given the BMI formula. The first question reads, Karabo weighs 92 kilograms and her BMI is 30,7. Now, what is her height? So first of all, you copy your formula onto the page where you are writing down your answers. You substitute in the values that you have. Now, unfortunately, this is not a simple calculation. You cannot simply just put this into your calculator and get the correct answer. You first have to get height alone on the one side of this equation. We are going to do that if we take height and we multiply it by 30,7, and then we take 30,7, we divide it this side with 92. As if height and the BMI are multiplied, the opposite action this side will be to divide. Therefore, we get this 92 divided by 30,7. Type that into your calculator, gives you an answer of 2 meters. Now, once again, extremely important, the height is squared. So 2 meters is not in fact her real height. You first need to get the square root of 2 and type that into your calculator, gives you an answer of 1,4 meters. Our last question for today, and it's a simple one to end off today's session. What is Karabo's health status? She has a health status of 30, or a BMI of 30,7. So 30,7 falls within this more than 30. Therefore, she has a health status of obese. So this is more or less what your questions will look like regarding your BMI section on weight and mass. Now, if you have any other questions, please remember to submit them in the question box. Remember also to download the handouts. It does include an additional task, which is great for revision regarding the term 1 and term 2 work on measurement. So do remember to go and download those notes. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a wonderful day further.